Hello, I'm Dr. Dennis McKenna. As always, I'm joined by Dr. Fred Venditti, our hospital system general director. Today is Tuesday, February 23rd, giving you the update from Albany Med. All right, Fred, if it's all good news
It is
in the beginning here.
great
It's
news today, yeah.
Let's pop open the first graph, Capital Region, people admitted to the hospital. You can currently see we're at 166. Now, what's noteworthy is if you look at that horizontal green line, Fred, you can see that we're now lower than the peak of the first wave.
Yeah, that's tremendous.
Which is great.
Yep.
High water mark was 553. The last time we were this low was November 27th, so almost 3 months. Next graph you're very familiar with. This is admissions and discharges to the hospital at Albany Medical Center. Fred, looks like most days single digits.
Yeah, I think we've had one day with double digits in the last week or 10 days. Yep.
Wonderful. And then, of course, the morning census here at the medical center, we're currently opening up at 52. Of those, 10 of them are on ventilators at this time. Fred, still about half of those are not infectious. Is that correct?
That's right. Of the 52, 26.
26.
Yeah.
Wonderful news. Let's share a couple more data points, Fred. One of the numbers that gets talked about a lot in the media is what are the percentage of people who are being tested that are positive, right? That's a number that I know we've talked about that they use for opening and closing of different things. And currently, right now, the 7-day rolling average is 2%.
That's right. And it actually dipped down to 1.99 over the weekend.
Which is wonderful.
For the capital region.
For the capital region.
That's
Thank
right.
you for pointing that out. At one point, we were as high as 10%. So that number also moving, I would say in the positive direction, but it's really moving in the negative direction.
It's going down, but that's positive.
Right.
So Dennis, this is an important number for us because some of the things that we're doing are tied to this number.
Right.
For example, visitation.
Right.
And so if it gets low enough, we'll begin to open up visitation.
Fred, I'm so glad you brought that up because I know you get stopped in the hall, I get stopped,
Yes.
we get emailed. There's a lot of people who work here who are at the bedside and they're advocating for families to come in. And what we've told them, in our conversations with them is, Dr. Venditti and I completely agree with you. When we can allow us to increase the visitation, we will. We are still under a restriction by the state on the number of hours a day we're allowed to do that.
That's right. The executive order from back in the spring still is in force.
Yes, but we are looking for opportunities, as you say, based on that number to do more.
And Dennis, I hope soon we will be making some changes.
Let's talk about vaccination. Let me remind all of you again, capitalregionvax.org. That's the website built here on this campus. And I'm going to name the 4 people who are responsible for that. Incredible data, lots of information produced both internally as well as links out to what's produced for the state. I was on there this morning. We have almost 400,000 visits to that website alone.
That's fantastic.
Which is great. And the content on there is just remarkable. Let me thank a couple people, Beth Engler, Colleen Kappen, Dan Fitzsimmons, and Dave Gardner are the 4 on this campus who made that. Fred, it's such an incredible website because you might read in the newspaper, depending on which county you're in, what's happening in your particular county, which is very important. But this is an aggregator of what's happening in all 8 counties of the capital region. And if you go in there, you can click on links and it'll show you based on county, different locations where vaccines clinics are occurring, how to schedule appointments. It's really remarkable. One of the data points I pulled off of there today is that in the capital region so far, 142,000 people have received at least their first dose. And if you look at those who are fully vaccinated, meaning having received both doses of the vaccine, 81,506.
So Dennis, that's remarkable. That's 7.5% of the population of the capital region fully vaccinated.
Fully vaccinated. And we were in safety brief today. We continue to hear the value and the benefit of the vaccine in so much as if you are fully vaccinated here at the medical center, we're not hearing about those individuals testing positive anymore.
That's right, Dennis.
Yeah, which is great. Fred, do you have anything to tell us about Scotland?
So Dennis, it ties back to the vaccine information you just shared.
Right.
So there's more and more data coming out about how the vaccine affects the progress of the pandemic. So there are actually 2 studies that are in preprint that have actually been talked about in the press. One is the SIREN study. SIREN from England, which is about healthcare workers. And I won't say too much about that other than it reduces the frequency of hospitalization in that population. But the one that really caught my eye is a national health study out of Scotland, where they've looked at all 5.4 million people in Scotland. Scotland has a national record,
Right.
and so vaccinations, hospitalizations, doctor's visits, testing, all of it goes into one database.
Right.
So they can look across all 5+ million people and draw some conclusions of what's going on in real life around the vaccine. So they've vaccinated about 20% of their population, both with Pfizer and the Oxford AstraZeneca vaccine. And in both cases, after one dose, by 28 days, the frequency of hospitalization with COVID
Yes.
drops by between 85 and 94%.
That's awesome.
It's absolutely
After the first
incredible.
dose.
After the first dose. Now remember, in Great Britain, they're spacing out the doses by 12 weeks.
Right.
So they're pushing it out a little bit further, which is not how the studies were done that led to approval by the FDA. But this is just really quite remarkable because of the magnitude of the study
Right.
and the fact that it's very a natural study, if you will, or what's happening in the real world.
You and I were both watching the news this weekend. We know there's some dialogue out there that's starting in the national media about whether or not might be any change to the strategy in this country about vaccinations, one dose versus two. We know that the new vaccine that should be approved by the FDA, Johnson & Johnson, is only one dose.
That's right.
But what you're talking about is taking the 2-dose one and how much benefit you get even after the first.
That's right.
Very interesting.
And there was some indication of this in the original studies that led to their approval.
Right.
But now you're talking about hundreds of thousands of
Right.
people demonstrating that benefit.
Right. And just to be clear, if you're somebody who's getting the 2-dose vaccine, that is still the process. That's what we're doing
Absolutely.
here. Very
Absolutely.
good. Going back to capitalregionvax.org, for those that are interested, if you click on the COVID vaccine tracker, you can actually drill into all the counties in the capital region and find out about how much vaccine has been given by population. Fred, N95 respirators. Couple questions to ask you. First of all, we know there are 2 locations in the hospital that must use the teal: operating room and up on labor and delivery.
That's right, because of
Moisture.
moisture,
right.
correct, splatter.
Splatter.
From what they're doing in those areas, sorry. So we have plenty of teal
Okay.
masks for those 2 areas.
Good.
But we've removed the teal masks from all the other areas in the hospital. We've fit tested our staff
Yes.
on the whites and the duckbill. Those are available everywhere else.
So we have adequate supply of the white and the duckbill everywhere else in the hospital.
Absolutely. And our group has fit tested 1,800 staff members.
That's incredible.
It's a large number. In 95 hours, we were told this morning. So in a relatively short time frame over the last couple of weeks.
So if you are an employee and for reasons like you weren't here or not available, you did not get fit tested for the white, for example,
Yes.
and you're on a floor where only white or duckbill are available, what should you do?
Talk to your manager. You're going to need to go get fit tested in employee health.
Okay. Or use a PAPR if that's
Or
available
use a
as well.
PAPR if, PAPRs are on many of the floors. That would be acceptable. You have to go through the training there as well.
All right, very good. Last 2 items, let's talk about voting. Voting is important. Inside on this campus here, annually, we have an incredible celebration of nursing called Pillars of Nursing, where nurses, usually there's 5 or 6, are recognized for exceptional care that they've delivered, and that those names come forward as part of a nomination process.
That's right. And so nominations are being accepted. So think about it. If there's someone in your unit, someone you've worked with, someone that you think is just a phenomenal nurse, please nominate them.
And I think it's March 19th
Yes.
is the end date.
That's right.
All right, great. And then finally, every year the Times Union has the Best of the Capital Region poll. And Fred, Albany Medical Center is listed in 2 different categories
That's
this year,
right.
which is pretty unusual, but also pretty great. So I think we're going to encourage our workforce to do what we have done and what we also believe to be true, which is to vote for Albany Medical Center as the best in the capital region. Goods and services, if you go on the website, goods and services, and then there's 2 different areas you drop down on.
And then, that's right. And then best of frontline workers.
Best of
is the
frontline
other-
workers. So best of frontline workers and best hospital are 2 categories they can vote for.
That's right.
Okay, very
And
good.
we think we have the best frontline workers
do.
for sure.
We absolutely do.
And of course, we're the best hospital.
Of course, very good. All right, so I think the voting on that goes on for through the end of next week.
That's right.
And there's a link to that on our own intranet page. So we encourage our workforce to take a look for that
Vote
as well.
early.
Vote early, vote often. You can vote more than once. In this particular case, that's allowed. So I think that's what I'll do. All right, we'll be back again on Thursday, right?
Yes.
All right, very good. We'll be back again in 2 days. We ask that you once again, please take care of yourself, take care of each other, and we'll see you in 2 days.